I'll be talking about neurophysiology of pain. So pain, as we know, it is an unpleasant sensory and an emotional experience. So there are two components in pain. One is a sensory input, another one how the human being respond for the pain what we are perceived. To talk about the pain, we should know what is nociception. It is nothing but sensing the pain and how the signals are sent to the brain for understanding it. So there are 4 steps. First one is transduction. That is nothing but the mechanical energy converting into electrical energy. When we are getting the painful stimulus, there is a mechanical energy that will convert into the electrical energy. Then the nerves will be able to detect it. Second step is transmission. That is nothing but the signals are going to the higher center from the spinal cord to the brain. Third one is the perception. That is after reaching the signal to the brain, how the brain is trying to understand it, from where it is, how much it is coming, all those things. It is a perception. After that, the 4th step, the final steps in nociception is modulation. This is how the body modulate the pain, or brain or the spinal cord level, how they are trying to modulate, increase or decrease the pain sensation. Now let's talk about the anatomy of pain pathway. It's all start from the periphery. Whenever there is an injury, it can be in the hand or leg, the free nerve ending will detect it, and then they will carry the sensation to the spine. The pain pathway enters the spine from the posterior side and reaches the lamina of spinal cord. Now, there are 2 types of pain carrying pathways, fast and slow. A delta fibers are usually the fast pain carrying pathway. They carry sharp pain and help us to locate the pain. The another type of fiber is C fiber. They are unmyelinated. They are very slow in conducting. They usually conduct dull, aching and burning type of pain. The second order neuron starts posterior aspect of the spinal cord and goes up to the thalamus. All these are part of second order neuron. Once again, the second order neurons start from the dorsal aspect of the spinal cord and it receiving information from the first order neuron, that is from the periphery, and then it crosses the opposite side of the spine, and then it will ascend upward in the spine cord, brainstem and ultimately thalamus. There are 2 types of tract. One is neospinothalamic tract, another one is paleospinothalamic tract. The neospinothalamic tract usually carry the fast pain and they will eventually reach the posterior nucleus of the thalamus, that is ventral posterior nucleus, also called as ventrobasal complex. This is a direct pathway. The second one, the paleospinothalamic tract, it usually carry the slower pain and it is not going directly. It is indirect pathway. It will go to the reticular activating system of the brainstem first. From there, it will go to the interlaminar nucleus of the thalamus. What we just told in the previous slide, the interlaminar nuclei, for your understanding. So thalamus got many nucleus. So the interlaminar nucleus, if you want to see, we have to cut the thalamus to the half, and then if you see inside, you will see so many nucleus inside. Paleospinothalamic tract will reach the interlaminar nucleus of the thalamus. So the reticular activating system, it's actually located inside the brainstem. It's like a group of network of nucleus which is in the inside of the brainstem. It is usually control our on, off, or like awake cycle, consciousness, all those things. So our paleospinothalamic tract will go to reticular system, then it will go to the thalamic area. Now the final section of the pain pathway, the third order neuron. The third order neuron is starting from our thalamus, then it will eventually reach the cortical area. So it plays major role in understanding and perceiving the pain. So the third order nucleus will relay the pain information from the thalamus to the somatosensory cortex. So somatosensory cortex we will see somewhere here in the brain. So in front of the somatosensory cortex, you have the motor cortical area. From front, this aspect of the brain, we can produce movement, and just behind that, behind the central sulcus, we have the somatosensory area where all the sensory information will reach. So even pain information after reaching thalamus, it will reach the somatosensory cortical area. And we told the paleospinothalamic tract, which is coming indirectly to the brain. So that actually project into anterior cingulate cortex or insular cortex, that is more inside, which is having some roles with our emotions and behavior. So the pain pathway project one to the somatosensory cortical area, another one is to the emotional area or the limbic lobe. So somatosensory area will give us the idea about the location and intensity of the pain, and the limbic area will be dealing with our behavior and emotion towards this pain. This is for your further understanding. So somatosensory cortex we can see in the lateral aspect of the brain. So it is usually S1, S2 area of the brain, and you can see in our brain there is a representation of the body part, the homunculus. So we have face area, hand area, and if you go more inside the mid side of the brain, we have our leg area and other parts, our somatosensory area, where all the sensory information will reach. And this is the inside section of the brain where you can see the cingulate gyrus or our insular cortex. All those things are inside the brain, most medial aspect, which is controlling our emotions and behavior. Pain happens at the two sections. One is in the peripheral, another one is in the central. So in the peripheral, usually it is about gate control mechanism. So we learned that the first order neuron of the pain, it reaches the spinal cord from the posterior aspect, then the second order neuron starts. So the gate control mechanism happens somewhere in this area. There is an area called substantia gelatinosa in the spinal cord. I tried to make a pictorial representation over here. So what happens, the pain first order neuron comes to the spinal cord, then the second order neuron starts and it goes up. So our dorsal column medial lemniscus pathway also comes somewhere here only. That is for our touch and other sensation. So if there is a touch sensation activated, what will happen? That is also trying to go to the higher cortical area. But whenever the dorsal column medial lemniscus is activated, there is an interneuron which will try to inhibit the pain path. So this is how the masking or the gate mechanism happens. So when we experience pain, immediately if we start rubbing that area, that is activation of the dorsal column medial lemniscus, that pathway will send a inhibitory interneuron signals to the pain pathway, and that will block the pain pathway going upward. This is what happening in the peripheral mechanism, that is called as gate control mechanism. Another one is the central mechanism, where the higher center will send inhibitory signals to the spinal cord. That is how the human body is able to manage or reduce the pain. So there is descending pathway from the brainstem, like pre-aquatic gray matter that is in the brainstem, that will send a inhibitory signals to the spinal cord and it will reduce the pain going upward. That is one mechanism. Second mechanism is from the rostral ventromedial medulla, that will also send a signals to the spinal cord that actually release neurotransmitters like serotonin and noradrenaline. This will also reduce the pain going upward. So in summary, we discussed today the pain pathway, how it is starting from the periphery and it is ending in the brain. So we have the first order neuron starting from the peripheral part of the body, which can be any injured area, and from there the pathway will go to the spinal cord. Once it reaches the spinal cord, it will cross and then it will ascend up. So the first order neuron is from the periphery to the spinal cord, and the second order neuron start from the spinal cord and goes upward, right? And it will reach the thalamus. Thalamus, once it reaches the third order neuron will start, that will be going to the cortical area of the brain. So this is what we discussed, and we also discussed few points about the pain modulation, like how it's happening. It can happen in the spinal level or it can happen as a descending inhibition from the higher cortical area. And there is also a direct and indirect pathway of pain. So the direct pathway is actually the lateral spinothalamic pathway, which is going to the thalamus directly. The indirect pathway will be going to the reticular system in the brainstem. So we told in the brainstem there is the most inside part, there is reticular activating system. So the pain pathway, when it goes up, it will give signals to the reticular activating system. Then from there it will go to the thalamic area. Then finally it will reach the limbic lobe. So this is what we discussed today. I hope you understood.